And today's guest, I've got Kendra Lancaster. She's a three-time Paralympian. She's got a bronze medal from Athens, a silver from Beijing, and most recently a silver from the London 2012 Games. I'll pass you over to Kendra. It's good to have you on, Kendra.
Oh, thanks. I'm happy to be here.
So for the guys that are listening, can you tell us a little bit more about sitting volleyball?
Well, sitting volleyball is played very much the same as its counterpart, standing volleyball, which most people would probably know the basic rules. Two main differences are when players contact the ball, somewhere between their hips or their bum and their shoulders have to be touching the floor. So no standing up, you have to stay seated on the floor. The net's probably about, well, hand height for me. Do you remember how high the net is?
Uh,
It's about yeah?
Vaguely, what was it? One, it's going off the top of my head now. Was it 110 for women and no, it'd be lower than that. 105 for women and about 115 for men. But that's
Yeah, that
that's
sounds
me
about
going to
right.
guess.
Yeah, so the net's obviously a lot shorter, so the game can be played very much the same as if players were jumping to the top of the net. Another kind of moderate difference is that the serve can be blocked, which cannot happen during your normal standing volleyball game. So, yeah, I mean, it's played very much the same. It's just a sport that's been adapted to kind of equalize the floor for players with lower limb deficiencies.
And then how did you get involved in sitting volleyball?
I actually played standing volleyball along with many other sports when I was growing up as a kid in the U.S. And I played club volleyball, which is a massive, massive, massive thing in the U.S. And when I was 16 years old, my coach at the time had met or had seen the USA women's sitting volleyball team playing on like an exhibition at one of the club tournaments that he was at. And so when I started playing on his team, he encouraged me to get in touch with them. And so I did. And the team was very young at that point. I think they had only been around for about a year. And so they were really excited to have some new blood come on, someone with a lot of volleyball experience. And so I went and tried out at my first camp and made the team, and the rest was history, really. Yeah.
And then obviously the the listeners can't see that you have a disability. Have you had your disability all your life?
Yeah, so I was born with my arm amputated just below my elbow. So I essentially have my elbow joint, but no limb below that. And I grew up wearing a prosthetic most of my life and play volleyball with a prosthetic. It allows me to pass with two hands and set and block as well with two hands. So it's pretty essential for me that I have my prosthetic when I play.
And then probably did well from memory, you generally didn't have it on from for day to day, did you?
It depended sometimes. Most of the time, I did wear it. And actually, that's an interesting story in and of itself. Like, growing up, I was always really, really self conscious about people noticing that I was missing my arm. Like, it wasn't that I was embarrassed of it, it was that I didn't want it to be the thing that identified me. So I would wear like a cosmetic prosthetic arm for most of my life. And then, kind of by happenstance, last summer, my prosthetic broke, so I couldn't wear it for several weeks. And going through that process of kind of realizing, like, actually, people don't care. And it was more of like a psychological thing for me. So once I kind of broke myself of that habit and that it was a security blanket for me. I mean, it's like trying to take a kid's dummy or a pacifier away from them. You just kind of have to do it and let them get over it for a couple of weeks and then they forget about it. So I don't really wear my prosthetic other than to play volleyball anymore.
And then through your progression through the three games that you've done, have you seen? Did you see? I should rephrase that a little bit. Have you when you were playing? Did you see a progression within not just the US team, but as a sport as a whole? Obviously, going from when you started, obviously, all the way through to London 2012.
Yeah, in the sport, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I think probably the most drastic changes have been in the women's game. So in Athens 2004, that was the first Paralympics where women's sitting volleyball was a sport. So before that, it had been men's standing volleyball. So they'd never had women's volleyball in the Paralympics before 2004. And, because it wasn't a Paralympic sport until that quad, a lot of the women's teams some of them were very experienced and had been playing for many years. But over the next 3 quads, as it got more attention and more successes, those programs around the world started receiving a lot more funding and a lot more resources. And the transition that the sport has made has been absolutely incredible. If and any of you guys listening as well, if you ever get the chance to watch some of those matches from those original games and then watch a match like what was just played in the women's gold medal match in Rio, it is a completely different sport. Absolutely. Like, the volleyball skill, most of all, has just increased to such an impressive level in the women's game. In the men's game, I think it's evolved as well. And that's primarily been kind of in that middle tier of teams that you see in these international tournaments. I think the top teams, Iran, Bosnia, Egypt, they've always played at a very, very high level, and they've always finished kind of 1, 2, 3 or up until Athens. They had always finished like that. And then probably for like London 2012 to have a team like Germany come through, who have always been quite strong, but never quite managed to break onto that medals podium, to see them get bronze, was it bronze that they got in London?
Bronze in the end.
Yeah, to see them get bronze was really impressive. So you kind of have this ebb and flow of these teams being really successful, and that level is raising the level of the teams kind of below them. And we're getting to a point now in both the men's and the women's game where it's anyone's tournament. You see a team like Brazil come in and win bronze in Rio, which is obviously really incredible. Being the home team is something that's extra special. But 10 years ago, watching them play, even they have some of the same core players, but the skill level has improved so much in those teams. So to go from like kind of one of the bottom tier teams to bronze medalist in 10 years is really, really impressive. It's not something that you see quite often. So yeah, the sport's changed a lot, and I think it can only get better, and I think it's definitely going in that direction.
And then we'll think of another question. What was it like, now you've kind of taken a step back from the sport, what was it like to watch your team, I say, probably get over that hump and finally win the gold medal?
Yeah, I mean, as you say, it really was a getting over the hump for us. We finished second to China in every major international tournament from the Beijing Paralympic Games, basically up until the Rio Games. So it was really amazing for me to watch my team and getting to see them play it's the first time I've seen them play together in a really long time. So it was really incredible to get to see how they have changed just as a small group over the last couple of years. I mean, their cohesiveness on the court and stuff was really inspiring, and seeing them really support each other and just get the job done. They were so focused and so incredible. I was really proud of them. But I think the other, probably the more dominating emotions were mixed. Really sad. I was really sad that I wasn't there with them, especially since we fought so hard together over a very long period of time to really try and beat China when it counted. And that was really hard for me to see my teammates and my best friends in some cases, like, being in that moment, and I couldn't share it with them, which is obviously very selfish. But but there were a lot of mixed emotions. I mean, it's really hard knowing what it feels like and knowing how that experience is of the Paralympics and being there with that team, and they really were my family, and it just didn't feel right. But all that being said, I could not be more proud of them. I know how much they wanted it.
I probably echo that sentiment to it being selfish a little bit, because obviously for me it was also my first time I've not competed in the Paralympics since not being selected for Athens, so it's kind of, I had mixed emotions.
Yeah.
Probably leading into the Olympics, and maybe not as much as once the Paralympics started, because the British team hadn't qualified for hadn't qualified for Rio, so it was, well, okay, that's sports. I wasn't going to qualify. I wasn't going to go anyway, because obviously the team hadn't qualified, so it kind of lessened that emotion of not being there. But at the same
you had some closure.
At the same time, you're seeing it all over social media, all the different athletes posting, "Oh, here's the village." You're thinking, "Oh, I'm envious and a little bit jealous."
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
At the same time, I'm quite happy I've not had to done the training to get there. So.
No, I understand. Yeah, and I mean, for me, it was, I think, something else that kind of contributed to that was that I made that choice to not be a part of that a few years ago when I moved abroad, because I felt like I had given a lot of years and a lot of blood and sweat and tears to the team, and I had the opportunity to move abroad and kind of expand my horizons and come here with my now husband. And I think the first time in a long time I made a selfish choice to step away. Not really selfish, but kind of giving priority to something other than volleyball. So I'm very much at peace with that decision still, but it doesn't make it any easier. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm very happy that I took that time away, and really, I think I've grown a lot as a person, having the experiences that I had now that I wouldn't have necessarily been possible if I was committed to training with the team. It doesn't make it any easier, especially since there's always that if, or what if I had stayed, would I be there right now? And it's like, no, you just have to focus on what you're doing right now and be happy for your friends and be happy for your teammates. And I really, honestly, I couldn't be more happy for them. A lot of my friends had really great successes in Rio, and it was just so wonderful even to be able to be on the other side, watching that and cheering them on. It was fun.
And then obviously their successes, does it spur you on a little bit to want to come back? Or are you quite happy with your life decision to take that step away?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. I think all of the emotions and stuff that have been kind of flying around in my head over the last couple of weeks, they've definitely kind of inspired me to maybe start thinking about that. I don't want to make any decisions now because obviously emotions are running high, and I'm very excited for them and really miss it and everything like that. But I think it's one of those things where I'm just going to have to sit on it and wait and see if the time is right for me to go back. Because I think, one, obviously it's going to take a lot of effort on my part to train hard and really get back into it, because I have to make the team. I can't just walk back into the gym and be like, hey guys, I'm back. So there's a lot of work involved in that as well. And the other thing is I need to be in a place where I can truly devote myself to the program, because it deserves that, and I need to know in my mind that I can devote all of that time and effort and give them every part of me that they deserve. So it's a huge commitment. It's a huge idea, and it's something that I'm going to mull over maybe over the next year or so and see what happens.
Have I kind of put a little bit of doubt there then? Or
Sorry?
Have I put a little bit of doubt in your mind, or is that been there a little bit subconsciously anyway? As to
doubt.
Not doubt, as in that you think about possibly coming back into the sport.
No, that's been mulling around in my mind for a couple of months now. I mean, it's kind of like you said, when the Olympics started, that was when all of these feelings started kind of bubbling up to the surface, because I think up until the Olympics, I really was totally at peace. I love my life. I love that I have all of this time with Ben and all of these opportunities to travel and see the world and do different things that I wouldn't have normally done. And I was really, really happy about that. And then the Olympics started, and we were watching the volleyball in the opening ceremonies, and it starts like stirring up all of those emotions that you get when you're a part of that, and that pride and that real sense of like accomplishment, that this is something that I have done, and this is something that I've been working for and that we've been working for, and that those memories came back and also stirred up even more emotion. So this is something that's kind of been bubbling up to the surface for a couple of weeks. I haven't made any decisions yet, obviously, but it certainly has kind of like popped into my head once or twice.
Okay. And then probably from my perspective, were you fortunate enough to get to go to the opening ceremonies when you were an athlete? Or did the sport kind of take over and be, how would I put it? Obviously, I never got the privilege of going to an opening ceremony because obviously both of the Paralympics I was in, we were competing the next day, so it was always taken out of our hands. I won't say you will not go, but it's because, probably to explain to the listeners, you spend hours and hours, so they say, on your feet. But I've heard loads of athletes say they've gone to sleep in the stages before the opening ceremony just so they're not on their feet. So have you been fortunate enough to be in that position?
Yeah. Actually, I was. In all three Paralympics, my team was able to walk in the opening ceremonies. And you're absolutely right in what you say. Like, it's exhausting because on my team, we always had this thing that we joked about. It was like a hurry up and wait situation. And especially for the Paralympics or the Olympics, for the opening ceremonies, like what you see on TV is the athletes walking in, they do a lap around, waving, and that's all you see. And maybe they're out there maybe like 10 minutes, but really it's hours and hours and hours. Like, I think if I remember correctly, like in London, the opening ceremony started at, I don't know, maybe 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, something like that. And we were outside in the village at like 2 or 3. Like, we had to be ready in our outfits, get checked to make sure that we were wearing everything properly. And then it was standing around with everyone for an hour outside of our like living area, our residences. And then it was like 3 or 4 hours of standing in line because everybody's got to be like sorted by their country, and they want to make sure everyone's together, and we're all lined up outside the venue. And then you have to wait until like the countries in front of you go through. And so, like, the United States of America in most languages is like at the back of the line. I mean, same for the United Kingdom. Are you guys?
Oh, we'd have gone out first. Let's see if I get it right. No, we'd have been last in London.
Yeah, in London you were last. Yeah, and it's a long old day. But in London we had at least a day, maybe 2, I think, of downtime between then and our first match. So it was perfectly doable for us to do. I mean, there's really no feeling like it. There really isn't. It was pretty special.
Making me more envious now.
I know. I'm sorry. I won't say anything else.
It's one of those. It's more, obviously, from my perspective, it'd be a discussion between the squads and say, well, what's the best? Do you go to the opening ceremony and then possibly underperform, and then you'll say, well, it's because of that, or do you not go and you focus on the sport, which is technically what you're there for, and perform. Right. And so you've got to weigh it up and what's best. So obviously, some of the countries might not try to be as PC as possible. They might not have as much a professional outlook on their sport as, say, some of the bigger nations, without being too faced about it. So it's kind of looking at it from that way. So obviously that's the reason why I've never done the opening ceremony. I've I've
Yeah.
watched them both, but it's probably not the same as actually being
Yeah.
in the stadium and feeding off that
Yeah. And I think
hysteria.
it's like you said, it's a very personal decision that you have to make as an athlete, especially if there's any doubt as to whether or not being up that late is going to be affecting your performance. Like it's like you said, there's this perspective that listen, I'm here to compete, and compete is what I'm focusing on. And in that case, it makes total sense to not go if you think it's going to be affecting your performance. On the flip side of that, I think for me, like my personal opinion about stuff like that is that I think it's a damn shame if an athlete doesn't get to experience that at least once. And I'm not saying that you should have chosen something else. It's just for me, I'm quite an emotional person. So the emotion of it and the experience of it is what really truly makes that competition, it kind of sets it apart from everything else. And it's really special. Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, I had because obviously I was the only member of the British sitting volleyball men's team to actually done a Paralympics before. So I had a lot of the guys say, "What is the Paralympic experience going to be like?"
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you what mine was, but then you
Mm,
can't compare one games to another because
absolutely
they're
not.
totally different entities. So obviously, when it came around to that first game, okay, I know it's gonna be. I got a little bit of expectation what it was, but I was still blown away on that before that first
Yeah.
game, thinking because obviously that was a lot of bad publicity about. It won't do very well. So you're thinking there was a lot of, especially in the media, obviously about the money involved with the Olympics, and
Hmm.
then you're thinking because I said to people, "Oh, it'd be easy to get Paralympic tickets," but I was basing it on what Beijing was like, because obviously
What?
they were bringing in
Right.
rent a crowd to fill up the stand. So you're thinking,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, the Olympics will be difficult to get a ticket, but this is to quote
Yeah.
unquote my own words. I said to people, "Yeah, don't worry, they you'd probably be able to get a ticket, no problem." But I had people coming back to me because obviously it was like a lottery system. They were coming back to me
Yeah. Yeah.
saying, "I can't get a ticket for blood or money." I'm thinking, so I think I've done it in press releases in the lead up to the games. Said if you didn't know a British athlete at that point, you were probably not going to get a ticket. So it was a case of
Yeah.
it was kind of going from okay, and obviously I put this in perspective. The sitting volleyball probably, or especially for the British side of the game, we were used to seeing. I'd probably say how many people would it have been? Probably to be generous, at best, probably about 20 people in a stand normally, and that would be
Yeah.
friends and family. So going from that to I don't know what the XL capacity was in the end, so
I think it was like 8,000 or something like
8,000, and
that.
then I don't think it was full to capacity because I think for some reason with fire regulations they couldn't fill it completely. But you're going from 20 people for an example to
That's
that
right.
was
It's a huge
mind
jump.
blowing.
Hmm.
So
Well, and it's like you said, it's really hard to compare one games to another games, and especially what you were going to and from, like visiting a country and going into the Paralympics and competing, is just night and day from competing in your home country. And I think that's also testament to a job well done with the London in for London 2012, because the support that showed up for you guys was incredible, absolutely incredible, and the support that was shown by the city of London was absolutely amazing as well. Like even for our families that were there, it was obviously a lot easier for them to go to London than it would have been for like Athens or Beijing. Um, Not only was it a lot closer than Beijing, but also they were going to a country in China where very few people spoke English and there was very little English around. So you have this language difference as well, but there was this like real warmth and feeling of being at home that my mom and my sister really appreciated when they came, and my grandmother was there too. It was just the little things like being on the tube, and there would be like London Paralympic representatives coming up and asking them, "Oh, you guys are family, like who are you supporting? Where are you going? Can I help you find your way?" It's it was just really incredible, like the difference between Beijing and London as well. Like even I can say between these three games that I've been to, people always ask like, "What was your favorite?" They always ask like, which games
Oh,
was your favorite?
I hate that question.
And you can't even begin to explain that because I just tell them like I can't choose one. They were so different from one another. And like Athens was such an incredible experience for me because it was my first games and I was so young, and I just went around like completely doe-eyed and absolutely amazed at everything I saw. And then going from Athens to Beijing, the scale of Beijing was on a different planet from what Athens was. Like, I mean, maybe you'll agree with this. Like, Beijing was huge. Everything was massive. There were just millions of people everywhere all the time, and the village was beautiful and landscaped, and they had like a river flowing through it, it was just in Athens. The athletes' village wasn't even finished. Like the landscaping wasn't finished. I remember there being like cinder blocks and stuff just laying where the grass was supposed to be. And it was lovely. Like there's nothing wrong with that. I understand it's a massive thing to organize. But going from that to Beijing, and again, you're just amazed. Like this is what it's supposed to be like, this like huge event, and everything went well, and it was just massive, and it was finished on like a whole different level from Athens. So that was how Beijing stood out to me. And obviously we went from being in the bronze medal match to the gold medal match this time. So that kind of upped the ante. And then for me, being in London was super extra special because I was lucky enough to be there, given like the last year that I had before I was there. And getting to experience that with Ben and with my family being there again, because my family were in Beijing, it was just on a whole different level. And I think the level of care that seemed to have been given to the London 2012 games, and the kind of the level of recognition that it received in London, and the support from the city and stuff, I think that also made it extra special. So yeah, the games are all so different, and they have their own personalities, and they have their own downfalls, and they have their own things that they excel at, but they're all special for a different reason.
Yeah, I think we'll wrap it up there.
Okay.
Kendra, thank you very much for your time. If anybody wanted to connect with you, what is the easiest way for them to get hold of you on social media?
I'm on Facebook, Kendra Lancaster Hall. I'm on Instagram. I think my handle now is It's K-Bomb. And my Twitter is KennyLynn15, but I'm rarely on my Twitter. So any of those three things, happy for anyone to reach out to me if they have any questions or just want some suggestions for ways to get involved in disabled sports in their area. Do my best to connect you.
And then to finish on, why did you go with that Instagram handle? What links it into that?
Yeah. So my nickname with I think a lot of your team and some of my other friends is K-Bomb because of the Lancaster bomber, obviously, and Lancaster being my last name. So that's one of the more special nicknames I've ever had.
I think I know who you mentioning within that team specifically. So I won't name him. So thank you very much, and thanks for taking the time out of your day to speak to me.
Oh, my pleasure. Anytime.